Swinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Like many members, last week I had the experience of going along to a school nativity play at Kilmont Primary in my constituency, and it was a really delightful experience. I'm sure other honourable members have had similar experiences. It really brings home the spirit of Christmas because, of course, for children it's a particularly exciting time of the year. But I think it's important for us to remember that behind all the fairy lights and behind the Christmas carols and the jubilation out there, there's actually, this time of year is when a lot of people have great worries on their shoulders, and particularly in the current economic climate, financial worries. It's especially galling when those are caused by government incompetence, and I know that most MPs will have huge amounts of cases from the Child Support Agency where the CSA has just been unable to enforce and actually make the parents who do not have care of the children actually pay their maintenance. But I came across a case recently with one of my constituents where actually the ex-husband had been paying the maintenance payments, quite significant maintenance payments, as he earned a good salary, but my constituent was left on benefits, entirely unaware that these payments were in fact being made. She only found out through a Freedom of Information request, and this had happened over several years. Had she been able to get the payments which she was rightfully entitled to for her and her children, she would have been in a position where it would have made sense for her to actually take on part-time work. She would have therefore been able to make pension contributions, and her financial situation would be entirely different to what it is. It's an example of the appalling mess that the CSA actually gets into. Another example of government incompetence would be the tax credit system. My constituent, Mr Macmillan, didn't confirm his income in time, and as a result was presented with a bill for more than £8,000 to repay. Now, for people who are on tax credits, it's a terrifying sum of money to suddenly get a letter through the door like that. It has, thankfully, been reduced to just under £4,000, but that's still an incredibly significant sum for people to find. And let's remember, this is money that he actually was entitled to. With the calculations, it did make, this was his proper amount, and it was just due to that one error of not confirming it in time. And it seems to me an incredibly harsh way to treat individuals, especially when the tax credit system itself gets so many things wrong, whether it's overpayments or underpayments. And I have lost count of the number of constituents who have said to me they wish they'd never applied for the tax credits in the first place. Another financial issue causing worries for many constituents is the Thing Isle of Man issue. Many constituents had invested, perhaps even sometimes through UK companies, and had no idea that their money was taken offshore, but now stand to lose significant sums of money. And I'm interested that the Leader of the House on the 13th of November, Hansard column 962, said, "I shall raise it with my colleagues in the Treasury to establish whether a written ministerial statement is necessary in respect of those with deposits in Isle of Man financial institutions." There has, I understand, not yet been such a written statement, and so I wonder if we might get an update from the Deputy Leader when he sums up as to whether there will be a Treasury statement and exactly what the government is doing to press the Icelandic government to honour its commitments and compensate those who are affected. I raised earlier in Treasury questions the very depressing issue of unemployment and 85 jobs going in Mogai in my constituency with flexible ducting. We heard obviously about Woolworths as well, and there are more than 30 people employed in Woolworths and Kirkintilloch in my constituency. But I do think the government could take a leaf out of President-elect Obama's book and really invest in a green jobs revolution with much more investment in insulation for homes. That would also cut energy bills. It would help people to save money in that way as well. And we really need to be making sure that we use this opportunity to create those jobs and make sure we cut people's bills. But it's not just national government that should be making its mark. Local government too, as my honourable friend, the member for Sutton and Sheen, pointed out. His council, and I know Islington and I'm sure some others as well, have also managed to reduce the payment time for small and medium-sized businesses in their areas to just 10 days. This is something I very much hope my local council will adopt, and indeed I wrote to them earlier this month asking them to do so. Sadly, there has so far been no response, and I very much feel that the urgency of the situation means that action is required now by local authorities, and I do hope East Dunbartonshire Council will act to do this. Other councils have showed that it is possible, and it's an essential way to assist businesses in the economic downturn. Turning to another issue of great concern for a particular town in my constituency, the Low Moss area of Bishopbriggs, which is one of the biggest towns in my constituency, was chosen over 40 years ago as a temporary site for a prison. Temporary being an interesting definition because, of course, 40 years later it still continued. And recently, against the wishes of the local community and indeed the local council, the Scottish Government decided to build a new prison facility there. Now we have discovered that to add insult to injury, despite the fact that for 40 years this has been called Low Moss Prison, the Scottish Government and the Scottish Prison Service now plan to call the new prison Bishopbriggs Prison, and they've confirmed to me in writing that HMP Bishopbriggs is indeed the working title. There's no reason being given for this change. Now, Bishopbriggs, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a cheerful and friendly town with a great community spirit. It has produced such esteemed figures as the politician Thomas Muir of Hunters Hill, and more recently the talented musician Amy MacDonald. Understandably, the people in the town do not want the first thing that people think of when they hear the word Bishopbriggs to be a prison. So I've started a petition, and hundreds of people have already signed it, against this name change. The strength of the local feeling could not be clearer. The name HMP Bishopbriggs simply must be dropped. Now, I'd like to turn to an issue about Parliament and whether or not we might speed up bringing it into the 21st century. Now, I know the Deputy Leader has taken an interest in online matters, and indeed I seem to recall before his promotion to the government that he was often seen asking questions and business questions and Leader of the House questions about whether we should have more e-tabling for signatures for early day motions and such like. And more MPs are using the internet to connect better with their constituents, and I think Parliament should also be embracing this new technology, whether it's through the social networking sites like Facebook and Bebo and MySpace, whether it's through interactive forums encouraging comments on websites, podcasts or video logs known as vlogs, which are small videos that can be uploaded to sites like YouTube. Or indeed, there has been a new website just launched today called tweetminster.co.uk, and what this does is it aggregates all of the mini blogs or Twitters of those MPs who Twitter regularly. I declare an interest as one of the 5 identified MPs who use this service, and the others are the Honourable Member for Loughborough, West Bromwich East, Welland Hatfield and Hornsey and Wood Green. And I think this is an example of a way of connecting more immediately with our constituents, and I would encourage other honourable members to make full use of the advantages the internet offers to make that connection, and particularly often with a younger audience who would not normally declare a huge interest in politics. But I have noticed some reticence actually within this House, and I hope the Deputy Leader may be able to press this issue forward, because there's a couple of issues in particular where it's been found to be a bit difficult to get progress. One of those is the campaign that I've been running to allow for the House authorities to allow members and indeed members of the public to upload clips of what happens in this chamber onto sites like YouTube. At the moment, we're allowed to upload these onto our own websites, which is helpful in some ways, but we don't then have the opportunities that the other sites afford, such as the forwarding and sharing of these clips very easily between like-minded people, the posting of them onto the social networking sites, the ratings and the comments of them, so that clips that are particularly popular are flagged up through the sites for a wider audience. And it strikes me that most people, yes, can watch the BBC Parliament channel, but probably don't. We see Prime Minister's questions on television, and I have to say I shudder to think of the response people have to that, because I do not think it's this House at its best. And if perhaps little nuggets of this House asking questions, holding the government to account, and various parts of parliamentary business were more able to be distributed amongst like-minded groups and individuals, then I think that would be a great advantage for democracy. And I know the Administration Committee is looking into this, and I hope the Deputy Leader will take that up as well. The other issue I would urge him to take up is the Free Our Bills campaign, and I have an EDM on this, number 221, which so far 72 members have signed, to change the way that we tag legislation electronically, to make it easier for people to follow where we are in the bill process and make comments, which can only increase the engagement people have. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to echo the comments that others have made, thanking the staff of this House and those working hard in our constituencies. And I hope the House will allow me just a little indulgence to say a special thank you to my researcher, Nick Hutton, who's been a member of my staff since I was elected 3.5 years ago, and I have to say is an absolute star, but sadly in the new year will be leaving to take up a new job, and he'll be very much missed indeed. Merry Christmas, Madam Deputy Speaker, to you and to everyone in Parliament.